This is Off Track.
What's up?
Hello, Timothy. Here we are again. While James is in Japan, we're just anchoring this whole show ourselves back home.
I like to think we're the steady part of this show. He's just that kind of errant thing that comes in and out. Really, the core.
Do I know what's annoying? Is like, as much as I like to think that I am good at this, like James is pretty much the reason the show is successful. So
I don't know. I think it's a good interplay between you two, because I don't think it'd be good if it was just him. I don't think it'd be good if it was just you. I think it'd be great if it was just me.
Right. The internet definitely seemed to agree with that last week. Well, it's a Tuesday. James, understandably, is unavailable. We're not going to give him too hard of a time for it. But I think you messaged me the other day and you asked a question, and I thought it was a very good question and a valid question. What do you do in the sim? Like, what does a sim day look like? And I think that's very fair. And the honest answer is it has evolved a lot. So, you know, these
just
simulators
iRacing
are
all day, right?
Right. Well, Mario Kart, really. Maybe that's where I've gone wrong. I've digressed too far away from the Mario Kart and tried to take this too seriously.
I mean, I'll be back in Indy in a couple of weeks. I can help you out there.
All right, we can get back to it. That just reminds me of the gift that you made me, which is just incredible, and I can't wait to bring it home. Anyways, so Sims have been a thing in motorsports for, I mean, going on, I would say 2+ decades now. Was really common in Formula One, and has come to really all form of motorsports, whether that's IndyCar, Cup, which is thought to be not very technologically advanced, but it obviously is. IMSA. I mean, it's even Formula 2 teams, Formula 3 teams, Formula E. Everyone is using simulation now. And the reason for it is, as we're well aware, you know, the cost of motorsports is pretty high. All championships, including Formula One, have restricted the amount of in-season and off-season testing that a team can do. So what's the next best thing? Simulate the testing and the car being on the track. And the problem with that is getting something that is close enough that you are confident in. And I'm not saying close enough from a motion standpoint. You know, we're all very aware of the fact that you're never going to be able to replicate the G-force. You're never going to be able to replicate, you know, the vibrations and obviously the penalty of getting it wrong in the sim. But what you can do, hopefully, is develop a tire model that is good enough to support on-track changes. And without getting too far into the weeds, if you think about an IndyCar race weekend, you've got two essentially 45-minute practice sessions. They go straight into qualifying. Then you have a 30-minute warm-up, and then you have the race. And so it's really not a huge amount of track time throughout the weekend. There's also not an abundance of tires. And, you know, as we've all talked about, the tires this year in particular wear pretty quickly. So it's very hard to get many changes in throughout the weekend because, you know, you've got short sessions, you've got a lot of cars on track, you've got tires that are changing in grip every time you leave pit lane. And so if you show up to a race weekend and think, okay, these are the 10 things that I want to try and accomplish, you know, to get the car in the window for qualifying, that's impossible. Like, there's no way you're going to do it. So where the sim comes into play is you can take a test list of 30 things and very quickly, you know, eliminate stuff that's bad. You know, you're not gonna go to the simulator, spend a day there, and develop a setup that you're gonna start the weekend with. But what you will do is you'll take a baseline setup, and you'll know that these 15 changes we know are going to be. So we're not even going to waste our time trying to address whatever problem we have in reality with those changes because we already crossed them off the list in the sim. So it's an incredibly useful tool for that. Yes.
So it's basically testing, like, if you're making changes to the car, making changes to the tires, what's going to not work. I mean this with every bit of respect that's due. Why are you there for that? Right? Can't they just have a computer program run a simulation of the car without you in the sim and see what works and doesn't work?
That's a great question. We have that as well. So that's an offline sim. But the offline sim, and really that's running at all times. I mean, we use that as a tool on the race weekend. That's especially what you use it. You use it for overnight changes, right? It's like,
okay,
all right, we've got these 4 problems. We need to figure out a way to, improve the car balance here, but not like ruin all of the good things that are happening. The offline sim is a driver that is ultimately the perfect driver. But where the offline sim there's not the human element to it, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because you're getting something to replicate a lap identically every single time. It's a bad thing because, for example, if the sim driver, the fake robot driver, crashes, then he dials back the performance. Whereas a real driver, they might realize that in this corner, there's parameters and reasons why they can't push as hard as they can in the other 16 corners. So the real driver will still always be quicker, because if a sim driver is going offline, if the sim driver is locking up tires or whatever, they're going to back it up really for the whole lap. They don't have the ability necessarily. You can't program in the human computing part of, okay, well, just because I had a lock up here, I mean, you can, but it hasn't made its way to IndyCar offline simulation. So, and then the other thing is, and this is talked about a lot in Formula One, especially around this whole Verstappen, concept and dilemma, is that a car that is optimized in the wind tunnel, in the offline sim, in the shaker rig, might be a car that is so difficult to drive that the driver is not going to have any confidence in it. And so even though you might be giving up, let's call it 2/10, 3/10 of ultimate lap time by making something that has a bigger window, the driver is going to far exceed that gain of 2 or 3/10 just because they have the confidence to rag it and to push it harder. So that's where the element of the driver being involved is very important in the what's called driver in the loop DIL simulator. So at ECR, we use a huge amount. And the reason we use it so much is really because what we're trying to do is a lot of the work is not really going into a race weekend. It's coming out of a race weekend. So we flew to Charlotte straight from thermal, and all that we did was correlate the data in reality to what the sim data is and trying to get that to match as close as possible, because all of these small micro adjustments you're making to the tire is building a better tire for you to use down the road when we get to Road America, to Mid-Ohio, to whatever else road courses are coming up on the calendar. So it's a lot that goes into it. Just to give you a scale, there are, for every sim session, there is 3 in-person engineers. I have my race engineer, performance engineer. There's a tire engineer. Then also on site is 3 engineers from GM. Then there's also 7 people dialed in to essentially a Teams call, which is the other race engineer, the other performance engineer, the driver coach, the damper engineer, aerodynamicist, everything. So it's essentially treated as a test session. There's 13 odd people involved in making what is honestly just a exaggerated computer game go successfully for a day. So it's a frustrating tool because there are still some things in simulation land where it's like that would never happen in real life. And it can get annoying as a driver because you're driving the car as accurately as you can. And you're driving it as you would, out on the track, and then it'll spit you off into the wall and that sort of thing. And it can get annoying at times. But ultimately the benefit outweighs the frustrating moments. So it's a very useful thing. And we're very thankful to GM for all the time and resource they put into it. I mean, it's like a $30 million piece of equipment. So
that's insane.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into like what the specifics of what a sim day looks like for you, you talk about giving you the best tire, right? So obviously you're giving what you're getting what Firestone's going to give you, but everybody can make adjustments. So what kind of adjustments can a team make? Is it just like what pressure goes into the tire?
No. So what I'm talking about is like you're building a tire model. So it has nothing to do with the settings of the tire. It's the vertical stiffness. It's the yaw sensitivity. It's the amount of grip that it generates in certain phases of the corner. And unfortunately, Firestone doesn't give any information. So we're having to create a tire model from scratch.
All right. So from your perspective, I know after thermal, we hung out and then you flew out the next morning straight to Charlotte. What does a test day look like for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's a full day, man. So essentially, when I'm coming from Indy, it's super convenient to have an airplane because I can fly myself straight in Concord Regional Airport, which is literally, I'm not kidding you, 3 minutes from the sim.
And you made like crazy good time the last time you flew from Indy,
yeah,
right?
I mean, like hour 40 minutes, like door to door. Yeah, it's pretty badass. So it starts at 8 a.m. I'll walk you through the whole thing. So I like to fly down the night before because I don't want to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. No one does unless they're wanting to record a podcast.
Podcasting, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So I fly in the night before. I go to one of my favorite restaurants in Charlotte called Mac Daddy's or Big Daddy's.
Okay.
I don't know. Big Daddy's Burger Bar. I do a make your own salad. Stay at the Courtyard Marriott across the street. I'm in bed by like 9. Wake up at 7:30. Run to the Starbucks. Show up at the sim at 8. Get in the sim around 8:15, and then I'm in it until 11:30ish. Christian flies down on the 9 a.m. flight from Indy to Charlotte. He lands around 10:45, Ubers to the sim, and he drives the sim from like 11:30 to 3, let's call it. In the meantime, like I have lunch, I catch up on calls, emails. I help them, with, what changes, we should move up the order or whatever. And then I get back in the sim from 3 to 6 and fly myself home. So it's essentially 8 to 6 with a 2.5, 3 hour break in the middle to get some food and to reset your mind a little bit. And that's the way that we've best found to do it. Because I will tell you, at previous teams, I've done full sim days that it's just myself. And even though there's no physicality involved, you are so mentally fried from staring at a screen, trying to drive a race car on the limit, that like by the time you get to hour 5, 6, you're so fatigued, it all goes to hell in a handbasket
So
anyways.
I was gonna ask about
it's
that.
more demanding to drive the sim than it almost is the real car.
I was going to ask about that because, yeah, obviously you're not dealing with like the same brake pressure, the tire.
No, you are.
You are? Okay. Yeah. So it is still some physical demanding, but like,
yeah.
I know anybody can relate if you had like a really hard day at work, even if it wasn't like a physically hard day. I can't relate because I don't work.
Right.
It's not like when you get home and you just want to sit down and rest.
Well, no, when when you have to go to like a school function for Hazel or anyone has to go to some cocktail hour and you're like, or a trade show and you're on your feet for a long period of time and you're talking and you're trying to be engaging. Like I would never do this. I don't try and be engaging or talk, but in theory, if I were to do that, then you're exhausted. You're burnt out. It's taxing on your nervous system. Mm-hmm. It's the exact same thing for driving a sim. Like, yes, the brake force is there. Yes, the steering weight is there, but it's like an air conditioned room. You're in your shorts and a t-shirt. Like you're just kind of chilling.
Like, does does he get in full fire suit? I feel like
he's full fire suit.
He's full fire suit. I could 100% see that.
Yeah. Simon does that as well or used to do that. I think Power gets in a suit, but the rest of us it's shorts and t-shirt. Dude.
Yeah. Why on earth would you be in your fire suit?
They're just trying to get in the zone, man. They're trying to get in the zone.
I remember at one point Marco posted a picture on Twitter of like the speedometer, but it was in a sim and it showed like going 230 and people were online like, I can't believe you would take a picture in the car while going that fast. It was like, do you really think he would?
So yeah, it's ultimately a lot of work for everyone involved. It's a big time consumer, but it's especially for where we were at ECR and what we're trying to accomplish, it's been a huge benefit. And, yeah, we'll be back in the sim straight after Long Beach. So race Sunday, fly to Charlotte Monday, sim Tuesday. And it's just part of the job, man. But it's pretty hard to complain about your most challenging task is to go
play video games.
A video game. Yeah.
So. I mean, I'm a little upset that means we can't do an escape room Monday after Long Beach, but I'll get over it, I guess. All right. We got a little more time left. So if there was, let's say like you were in charge of either ECR tomorrow or IndyCar tomorrow or Chevy or Firestone, what's like one thing if you could just unilaterally make the change, what would you do to improve a sim day?
Have our sim, whether that's ECR or Chevy's in Indiana.
In Indiana? Well, it sounds like you just need 30 million for that, right?
Well, I took for granted. So like I obviously drove for a Honda team for 7 years.
Yeah, and that's like granted 40-minute drive from Indy, right?
Well, no, dude. It's like 25 minutes from my house. It was in Brownsburg.
Oh, is it?
Like
I thought it was further than that.
Well, it's now by the airport, but no, Brownsburg. So I took for granted how nice it was to wake up in my own bed, pop over to the sim, and then be home in time for dinner. But that is what it is. Obviously, it's a small advantage for Penske because they're local, but not a small advantage for Joseph because he lives in Nashville. But yeah, I would say to have a sim that's in-house would be my number one improvement. So if anyone has 30 mil lying around that they want to toss my way,
I'll check out I'll check out the couch cushions. I'll see what I got in there.
Right.
Yeah. We'll start a GoFundMe for Alex Rossi's sim.
And on that note, like I think a lot of people are probably curious about, drivers also, like I'm not the only one that spends this amount of time in the sims, but also there's quite a few guys, McLaughlin, Pelot, Jack Harvey, Connor. There's I would say probably 10, David, Malukas, that have at-home sims as well. So, iRacing in a lot of respects has come a really long way. And in some ways it's a little bit better actually than the sim that we have. I wouldn't say from a realism standpoint of like the motion, the platform, the graphics, the steering feedback, the brake feedback, but because iRacing is a community, like there's a lot of budget that they have to continually improve the track models and to continually update the car and the tire model. Like iRacing actually has a thermal tire model. Thermal meaning temperature, not racetrack.
I was curious. Yeah.
Whereas in the sim, like in Charlotte, none of the teams use a thermal tire model because it's just too challenging to get to work. So iRacing can be a huge tool for guys, especially if they're new to the series, they don't know the tracks, that sort of thing. I think from where I stand, like obviously all the tracks that we go to, I've now been racing at for a really long period of time. So I don't need to have the supplemental sim stuff to learn a track, but certainly, at home rigs now that you can get for $3,000 to $11,000 are in a lot of respects just as good as the $30 million sims. And the guys that work on the GM one hate people when they say this, but like, that's the reality. Like you can get very close to what we're using at home. So if that interests you guys, go do it.
I mean,
you can.
Like from the driver perspective, I get that like Hinch talks about learning tracks by using iRacing on tracks he hasn't been to, stuff like that. But you couldn't do like a full sim day with those 13 people you said were involved on one of those, could you?
What do you mean by that?
Well, yeah, I'm saying like if you had, say, Canon set up in your basement and they said, Alex, we need to do a sim day. We're just going to send a few people over to your house and call the rest of them in. We're just going to do the sim day from your place. Like, could you do that?
You could do, I would say, 70% of it.
Okay.
We're testing a lot of like damper stuff out. We're testing a lot of stuff out that's proprietary to a team, whereas that's not going to be in a drop down menu on iRacing. But if you're like, experimenting with diffs or roll centers or wheelbases or spring packages or whatever, all options that are in a mechanical menu on iRacing, yeah, you could 100% accomplish the same thing. But kind of what we're doing is that next level, which is ultimately where the cost comes in because the vehicle model and the math and the computing power behind it is just that little bit more advanced.
That 0.5%, that's the difference between 13th place in pole.
It's a little too close to home there, pal. But yeah, you're right.
You didn't start 13th, right?
No, but I mean, I think that's my average for the year so far. 20th and 6th divided by 2 is 13.
Damn. Wow. I wasn't even trying to make fun of you. I was just pulling a number out of my ass. Yeah. It's all right. Your top 10 finishes,
Oh yeah. Thanks. That's what we're aiming for.
You're gonna win Long Beach, so we can go hang out.
Actually, I think
is traditionally really strong at Long Beach.
I think I might.
Okay. Well, I got a hotel room down at Long Beach.
You heard it here first.
We're gonna party.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for walking me through a sim day. This was fun.
No problem. Anytime, pal.
This has been Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. Off Track is part of the SiriusXM Sports Podcast Network. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please give a 5-star rating and leave a review. Subscribe today wherever you stream your podcasts. We are at Ask Off Track on Twitter and Instagram, and if you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at Hinchtown and at Alexander Rossi. If you want to follow Tim, though we have no idea why you would, he's at the Tim Durham on Twitter. Find us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel for exclusive video content. Off Track is produced by Tim Durham, and by that we mean Tim.